watching the clock, 10,000 hours go by. I keep putting in work, the tears are filling my eyes. I swear I've never been tested like this, but this is mine. It's not a matter of chance, just a matter of time. Never look back. If something's standing in my way, I always push back. If something seemed impossible, I never took that. Nah, cause now I know better. Can't stop, won't stop, I won't quit ever. This world is won't take me. The highest fall, it won't break me. The blood and sweat is what made me. I'ma get mine, just a matter of time.
Today's matchup, KT Rolster, SK Telecom T1. The Fantastic Run.
Welcome back to the LCK, guys, and that's right, it is telecom war time. I'm still Atlas, this is still Papa Smithy. It's been a long break, but this is the one you've all been waiting for.
It's such an awesome story. The story of the telecom war spans multiple esports, many years, and in League of Legends, the better part of 6 years. But that story today, it is an interesting one. We actually do not have either team in the top 5 in a telecom war for the first time, maybe ever, but definitely the first time in any sort of recent memory. And this is not some quirk of scheduling where the telecom war was played after the second series and you can't really enjoy it that way. This is 7 versus 5. Okay, we told a lie. Actually, Hanwha lost, so KT is 5th. But you know what I'm trying to say, guys. Right now, KT and SKT are more towards the middle of the table than they are at the top of the table. And that means it's a very interesting series to enjoy. If KT win, they will be pretty entrenched around 4th. If SKT win, their slim hopes of playoffs get more and more loud.
Yeah, and if KT win, they actually tie themselves as far as win-loss with Kingzone as well and put themselves ahead in points. So we'll be able to skip on up to get themselves forward and could, with a 2-0, tie with a Freak of Freaks for 3rd place. So KT, a lot on the line to break the top. But good lord, SKT, they need to pick up wins now. If they want to challenge that top 4, top 5, they need to start winning.
And this week was about needing to win every match. They beat the first team. They beat MVP. They face Hanwha after that big loss today, where they might actually be in a good spot if they can win today. The big 3 wins this week, so important for SKT. But let's talk about KT Rolster. This is not a drill. They are actually changing their roster. And if you look at these players, you'll think it all looks different, but look at the first one here. Kingen will be starting. Smeb has played 384 consecutive games, never been subbed in his career. He will start game 1 on the bench.
It is just completely ridiculous. We were never expecting it when he was playing for Rox Tigers. Certainly wasn't subbed out there. He was the only one. You have to look so far back in time to find out when it wasn't Smeb playing in the top lane for whichever team he was on. And now for the first time on this iteration of KT, Smeb not going to be starting. And he's the captain, Papa. What does this mean?
They have a lot of experienced players, but shot calling will have to be different. Smeb has been up and down this season. We know his potential. We know when it's at maximum, you would play Smeb and no other top laner in the world. But they're giving Kingen a chance. His solo rank experience has been a very prosperous one. It is a risk, though. It's against SK Telecom. They're not making any big changes.
No. It is going to be the roster that we're expecting most likely. Let's bring it up on your screen. Most likely not going to be Kingen facing off against Untara, as of course Tal has been the top laner of choice. Blank will be in the jungle, FLICKR, and then it will be Bang and Effort to line up that bottom half of the map. SKT looking well and truly the same, but what will they make of this new top laner for KT Rolster? Yukal was a fantastic addition. Maybe it's adding some young guns to the roster that's going to help reinvigorate KT.
And you got to say, Tal, for once, is actually going to be the young in the matchup. He's going to be the one with the experience edge, where maybe he will feel he can bully around Kingen on his first real debut. Kingen did play 2 games for APK Prince in the Casper Cup last year, but that, of course, is a far, far world away from where he finds himself today. On the biggest stage in Korean esports, it gets no bigger than the telecom war, regardless of where the teams are at. KT Rolster beat FLICKR after losing to Hanwha Life on their return from Rift Rivals. SK Telecom were able to take down MVP after a slow start. The first game loss against MVP wasn't great. They did turn it around, but it's the telecom war. SKT won it against expectations in the first round robin, and usually future and previous results don't matter. It's really about getting in the heads of your legendary opponents.
And of course, SKT do have that winning record against KT over all the years that these teams have been facing off. At the moment, it feels like KT are in better form, but when has that ever been something to trifle with when it's KT? I just don't think that it's something you can look at, as Smeb's KDA is going to be the one that is inflated, but Smeb ain't playing.
There is no Smeb today, at least for game number 1. I think maybe you just sub in Smeb for game number 2, regardless of win or loss.
Yeah.
And give Kingen the experience, but we're going to find out what the thought is there from KT, rewarding Kingen for his solo queue experience. Score versus Blank has always been an interesting matchup. Blank historically performed pretty well against Score outside of playoffs in spring season, where Score gave him a bit of a spanking. But let's zoom in on this one. Amazing that they have played 32 games, and that's only talking about the new iteration of KT Rolster that began in 2017 spring. 32 games. It's going to extend to maybe even 35 tonight. So much history between these two squads.
And you can also see that oftentimes it's going one way or the other. We're going to 3 games in the majority of our telecom wars, so make sure that you don't set any plans for later. It's most likely that we will have a 3-game series here tonight.
I'm going to look over the last time these two teams played. Game number 1, that was Score's Kindred, actually. Yukal on Swain, MVP overall was Def. And then FLICKR really just took off and then some. FLICKR first MVP on Yasuo, then a wonderful game on mid lane Aatrox, where the rise from Yukal really had no chance. Yukal looked desperately poor, and FLICKR was once again looking and reigning supreme. Effort had 2 games in a row of Pyke in that series, and the Pyke with Morgana for Bang was a really big pick to allow Effort to shine, maybe for the first time in some people's eyes. But this is still history. Things change so quickly, the meta rolls on. Today we may have an entirely new narrative to discuss.
And this was the series that brought out that Morgana-Pyke combo that has been banned away from SKT ever since. We're going to be having a look at the mid lane matchup, and you mentioned the Aatrox. This is where Yukal learnt that Aatrox is fantastic in the mid lane, came out of that series battered, and then destroyed someone with the Aatrox himself. We'll see whether Yukal's going to be able to pick up the Yasuo as well, because this would be exciting. Last time, we saw Yukal solo win a team fight by himself 1v4.
Oh, he won that game 1v9. He was so insanely big on the Yasuo last time out. FLICKR 6-1 if you include Rift Rivals on the Galio. It has been a pick that has made SKT once again look like a strong team. He's able to cover mistakes, initiate, burst damage. AP Galio does a bit of everything. There's going to be a lot of votes for this telecom war. Which way is it going to go? We have 7,000 plus votes here. 62% say that SK Telecom T1 is going to begin that charge to the top 5.
Yeah. Of course, the fans well and truly behind SKT. There's not a lot of fan votes that KT are going to win. I know a lot of you guys sitting there back home watching are trying not to get excited. As you look on, you see Kingen towards the top side of the map. It's sad not to see Smeb, but exciting to see change on the side of KT. Score, of course, we were talking about those consecutive games, Papa. Old man Score in the jungle, 435 in a row before Rush came and subbed in.
But the important number for today, it may be short of 435, but KT Rolster will not field Smeb. Smeb has played 384 games since his debut, never been subbed. They never needed to be a sub for Smeb. Maybe on those IM days they could have considered one, but ever since he hit the Rocks Tigers, the GE Tigers, the Ku Tigers, you know and love Smeb. He will not start game number 1 despite being the captain. SK Telecom T1, They are the ones that have the more fixed bans, you'd imagine. Red side bans on patch 8.13 with hotfixes enabled have consistently been Aatrox, the Nocturne, and also the Taliyah. Any change from that would be a surprise.
Yeah, they'd be certainly not the team I'd expect to deviate from those 3 bans. They've been banning them for a very long time as Morgana Pike. The SKT special bans are going to be taken away, and of course this rings very true with KT, who, like you said earlier, were the ones that got dealt with by that particular bottom lane duo.
And while we're happy to see the Galio ban against SKT, because SKT have been dominating with it again and again, actually, Atlas, if you asked me, would FLICKR play the Galio today, I would have said no, because I think he will definitely want to pick for lane against Yukal. Yukal, when he first debuted in spring season, had some good games against FLICKR, and then FLICKR really taught him a lesson in the first round robin. So I'm hoping we see a really explosive mid lane matchup. It could be the Swain, but of course, a lot more picks to roll through as SKT know what they like. And it's going to be Bang back on the Ezreal.
Yeah, Ezreal for Bang, and these picks were locked in extraordinarily fast. The Swain snapped up by KT, and then Trundle and Ezreal taken in very quick succession. This is a pick that I wanted to highlight. Yondu looked god tier in the game that MVP won against SKT. His Gragas looked fantastic, and Score is arguably the best jungle Gragas in the world.
I think he definitely is. Ambition gives him a run for his money, but those two have always been best on Gragas. Score celebrated around the world for his Gragas players, far back as Worlds a couple of years ago, where he had great games even if KT couldn't go through. It's also a soft counter to the Kindred if we do see SKT wanting to visit there. Unlikely with the Trundle being locked in, but the Gragas priority been very high recently. Do see a Braum, and you always start to wonder when you see Braum, but remember that Braum's Unbreakable does interrupt the cask and basically pop it in the air. So it is a nice compositional answer to the explosive cask.
Also, getting rid of a Swain sounds like a good idea. So trying to keep him away from you, utilizing the ultimate with the Braum. Not sure what SKT have in mind here, but it is a strong bottom lane. We know Ezreal and Braum work very well together, and it looks like we will just have regular AD carry and support 2v2s with the Tahm Kench already locked in.
You wonder if SKT is setting up for a Mundo pick, because see the Darius ban could just be Darius Mundo ban to ban out standard top laners. Because Kingan's in the roster, we should talk about his champion pool. Looking at solo queue, a lot of AP Gragas, so it could in fact be the flex pick top lane of the Gragas if Kingan wants it. Darius, Swain, Fiora. There's a couple of games Quinn there that I'll let you just ruminate on, but he definitely prefers the carries, doesn't prefer the tanks as much, so they'll actually ban away the Mundo. And look at this, SKT opting into bans that are more top lane than necessarily the jungle, although Camille, of course, can go into both. So excited to see Kingan's first game on the Rift, but the second round here is going to be the solo laners for SKT.
Yeah, and you can see SKT, there's a bit of a headache on the side of KT, given the fact that Swain can go almost anywhere. The Rumble going to be a coverage ban here for KT against FLICKR or against Tal, depending on who wants to be playing it. FLICKR didn't exactly win on their first game, but didn't do too badly, as there's an Ornn.
It's a coverage ban for the Gragas top lane as well, if they want to go that way, as Rumble's been seen as an answer, but seems like Cho'Gath versus Ornn is going to be our top lane matchup. And
oh
that's
my
a
god, okay, so
right,
Caitlyn got
that's a
hotfixed. She got hotfixed on this mini patch in the middle of the patch, so a headshot does a bit more damage now, but is that enough to mean that Caitlyn's relevant?
No.
Is this going to be KT bringing back their sick Caitlyn strats that they debuted, that destroy every turret instantly type strategy?
I'm just interested to see what SKT want to pick for mid lane. It's been confirmed it will be Swain mid lane for KT Rolster. Answer here is going to be FLICKR going back to Ryze. Interesting. Okay.
Wow.
Been a long time since FLICKR has played the Ryze with any reliability. One of his most played in his career. A lot of CC lockdown on the side of SKT. Not the most damage unless FLICKR really starts to get his items quite early.
Yeah. I'm still surprised. I'm still reeling from this Caitlyn pickup that KT have thrown
I'll hold
towards
you
the
out,
bottom
You
side.
can get through this, I promise.
Thank you, Pop Smithy. I always need you here by my side. Thankfully, I always have you here by my side. And SKT, is their answer going to be enough against the range that you always have to talk about when it comes to Caitlyn? And KT, can they hold off for long enough to make the Caitlyn relevant?
Really interesting to see the Caitlyn come out. We were surprised enough a few weeks ago when Ashe came through, but the utility had all started to fall into place. Caitlyn may have had those buffs, but this is really about dunking on Ezreal in lane with the harass that Caitlyn is so known for with her long range. Item build will be very interesting to track. I imagine BF Sword into a Zeal item will be the standard build path. We'll talk a bit about the hotfixes and what they mean for Caitlyn, but it wasn't supposed to be enough for those Infinity Edge carries to come in. We thought that Varus would be the only champion whose tier list rose from the hotfixes, and yet, here's a Caitlyn.
And what's the favorite item build to go for any of these carries that want to transition to that Infinity Edge? It's Blade of the Ruin King. Do you build it on a Caitlyn? Heck no, you don't. So are we going to see Stormrazor? Like, what's happening first item here for Def?
Stormrazor does sound appealing, especially when you outline the alternative.
Yeah.
Maybe the Caitlyn against the mages doesn't work because of that issue of not really building Blade the Ruin King, but he knew it was against an Ezreal. So wait and see, wait to fully understand what's going on with KT. They've got King in the top lane, they're playing Caitlyn. Are we sure they're okay?
I'm not entirely sure, and in fact, we're not sure whether the game is okay. We're going to start off with a bit of a pause while I believe SKT gets to the bottom of who this champion is on the bottom side of the map. They're like, oh, what is this Caitlyn thing doing down there? Just to confirm, it is a slight game issue. It's not like we've got any headsets that we need to plug in and plug out.
Of course, on your first game, King like, really? I have to deal with this extra worry. He just wants to get in and show us his sick mechanics.
I can actually, we have the pleasure of being able to see KT Rolster from our particular casting section over here, looking down at the booth. It looks like Kingen is okay, you know, but he was just looking down at his hands like, I just want to get into this game. I want to get into the game. UCal looking very similar. And we've got word that the problem has been solved. Podcast not going to be the start of the telecom war. There still might be some opportunities. You can see FLICKR on his screen as well, wanting to get back into the game as quickly as possible. It hasn't even started yet.
Oh, but it's going to soon.
Oh, it is now. Game 1, telecom war. KT Rolster, SKT, let's do it. Well, the SKT fans filling the Solis Stadium right now as Deft avoids narrowly a Winter's Bite. That would have been sad if he had gone down for First Blood. We never really would have understood whether the Caitlyn was going to be good if that was the start.
A lot of fans here still streaming in for the early minutes of the second series of the night. It's the Telecom War, so predictably tickets were sold out a while ago. Zooming into this game, going to be a really fun one to track because, you know, kind of like you're alluding to, there's a lot to wonder about KT Rolster. They are running the Caitlyn. We haven't seen her in the summer season after all the crit nerfs over the summer break, you would say.
Yeah.
We have Kingen in the roster on the Cho'Gath, and just the wonder of having someone other than Smeb being played. Smeb has had a decent summer, but I would say he's made a lot of critical errors, kind of unforced errors, just been too eager for initiation, and you can kind of understand why he's not preferred for game number 1, but because of the time, you're choosing the time to be the first game of the Telecom War. Kingen does come in rank 6 and rank 53 challenger, so there's definitely no questioning his mechanics. But you lose a lot of experience, you lose your captain, and of course, you losing your captain does mean that shot calling will be a bit different for KT. They've got Mata, they've got Score, they've got veterans. What it means for how they play out the game, we're going to find out.
Exactly. And I feel like they've taken a chef out of the kitchen as well. I mean, I've spoken to you about this a lot when it comes to shot calling, and they've got a lot of big voices on the side of KT. And now maybe taking one of those out might streamline the macro play, the KT Rolster that we know and love to be a little bit crazy.
SKT actually fired the first broadsword, or broadside I should say, when it came to fielding a rookie in a Telecom War. Prophet made his debut in 2017 spring in the Telecom War, and they went on to win that Telecom War SKT, so there has been a history of that happening, as Blank is wondering if his birthday came early, going for the double scuttle.
Yeah, he's going to be able to get it as well. Looks like Score has no interest in taking that one down, even though they did have vision available. He's just going to take the blue, just on a pretty standard trail through the jungle here, wanting to make sure that he's going to be well and truly safe on the Gragas. Oh, first Rupture that I saw from Kingen landed. That seems good.
Yeah.
But he's known more for the carries, as far as solo queue has told us, Papa. We'll see how the Cho'Gath is going to go. Can be aggressive sometimes in the lane, especially up against something like an Ornn.
He takes the winning side of the trades against the Ornn, so it's a pseudo counterpick, even if it is a tank. Into the Ornn. KT have initiation on the Gragas, and to some degree the Swain, so they can afford to go for someone who needs a bit of setup to get his team fight going. If you have Cho'Gath only for initiation, usually goes really bad, but in this scenario, we'll have Score to do the heavy lifting in that regard. Still surprised that they gave up level 1 so cleanly. Some of them have faded, but there was a lot of forward vision from SKT and even a defensive control ward to set up for a strong early game, but 2 scuttles, don't often see that.
Well, there's the Rune Prison down as Yukao has to deal with this pillar. Put it in the fantastic spot there, did Blank, but they just get a flash. Successful gank from Blank to start this one off.
Blank has been better than a lot of SKT fans give him credit for. There's definitely been critical errors, and there's been a couple of games where you could really wag the finger and say that Blank contributed pretty heavily in a loss, but he's also had mostly better performances. I would say his average level of performance over the last 6 or 7 best of 3s has been a lot better. He's been able to path pretty intelligently on the Trundle as well. See if he can outpath Score in this game number 1.
Yeah. So far, he's managed to get a flash. The Score is hanging around in his jungle. We'll be able to get the Gromp on respawn. As, of course, the Caitlyn has the minion wave under the turret. That is something that we can count on, and is something that has been the KT MO in times where they have been the victors in these telecom wars. It's when they can knock down turrets and move deft around the map just to basically be a demolition unit.
And think of how the meta has taken big twists and turns to set up lane priority with Yasuo's getting countered by Vladimir's, Soraka's into Morgana's. Even though the champions have been different, it still has been a lane priority meta. I think it may well be for the entirety of competitive League of Legends going forward. Caitlyn has the priority on the Ezreal, the Cho'Gath has the priority on the Ornn. So they do have pushing lane advantages here, KT, and that's something that's craved in basically every meta.
Yeah. Yukao's looking for is some respite now.
Uh-oh, Kingan's first gank attempt.
Yeah, not going to be able to find this Rupture either. He'll have to get that flash pretty quickly. It was a good silence, but doesn't silence for long enough. And First Blood will go to the Trundle. Blank is going to strike on the top side. Meanwhile, in the 2v2, Deft in trouble, has teleport to get him back to lane.
Cho'Gath has the Rumble scenario of overextending to harass and push the lane many times. He put down a ward, but I imagine Tal told his jungler that if he hugged the wall, he wouldn't actually be spotted by it. Got in, nice gank timing, flashes down on Kingan. Nice play by SKT.
Yep. Got an idea of what the first item is from Deft. It's a BF sword. See whether he is just going to go BF sword into Zeal item, which is often what we see when we see Caitlyn's just wanting to take down turrets. That hasn't copped as much of a change so far.
BF sword into rapid fire cannon into Infinity Edge, very, very possible. Caitlyn got some nice buffs around everything. Could be Storm Razor as well, Atlas, if they want to go for a one-item power spike. We'll wait and see.
Personally think that maybe double Zeal item after this could be the option. Just forego the Infinity Edge until item number 3.
Storm Razor plus a finished Zeal item became a really powerful duo of items recently.
That's true.
Tal just uses his ultimate to try to push the lane. They basically changed the threshold for which you get the full crit value out of the Storm Razor auto to 30% crit, which is what you get with your first completed big Zeal item, like a rapid fire cannon, rather than 60%, which before needed that Infinity Edge. So there is definitely kind of an encouragement to go those 2 items together, and while you won't necessarily be 3-item Tristana like you were once upon a time, you still will be very strong at 2 items.
Yeah, it certainly is a great turret-destroying build option as well, because it gives you flat damage and attack speed. It's just going to be that extra effect that's going to give you the crit. So building towards it feels good if you're just killing turrets, and also having the item as well feels good, especially if you can shoot someone and then run away with the extra movement speed. I like the idea. I also really love the theory crafting that we're having to do now that we've spotted our first Caitlyn of this particular season. Currently not ahead by too much, as the Rise is able to take away the blue buff, but it was pretty close there by Score.
Big change was that Caitlyn now gets more value out of critical chance purchases than she did before. So the headshots just do more damage than they did before, was the hot fix to give her just a little bit more oomph on patch 8.13. I imagine we'll continue to see systemic buffs to Marksman to get them more and more as a consideration in the bot lane. I think we're a little bit still far away from Marksman versus Marksman every game, and maybe that will never happen. Maybe the floodgates have been opened, but I think the encouragement for marksman is going to be slowly buffed until it becomes close to the norm.
You can see, unfortunately for Deft, he's going to cup a bunch of harass here in this lane, just looking for auto attacks on both Bang and Effort. We're playing pretty well so far, have already forced that teleport out of Deft, and Bang is still sitting on his after his first back. Decided that he needs as much lane priority as possible. Does go for that Sheen first, hasn't been able to finish the tier just yet.
Despite of the pushing lanes with all the scuttles that Blank has been able to put up. We don't have a counter here, but I believe he's taken all scuttles that have spawned. Able to push the top side. Score has to smite the blue. Not ideal either. Yukar won't be laning with blue buff against the Rise. A lot of nurse towards the Rise were on his wave clear, so he has blue. So he's going to be probably in a good wave clear spot against the Swain with that assist on the blue buff not being able to be transferred. That's the one lane where SKT were feeling comfortable to roam because Kingen had already used his flash and thus can't overextend next to the Ornn. Nice to see SKT play around pressure, sort of ordered gameplay they've always been known for, but has been abandoned by them a couple of times in recent memory.
Yeah, certainly feels like the SKT that we've feared of old, you know, the SKT that feels ominous when they hit the rift. Feels like you have to make the big play in order to take them down, otherwise they will just always win. Does seem to be the way. Def does have the CS advantage on the bottom side of the map, but you mentioned not able to hold on to that advantage top, and that's only going to continue now as Blank moves out of the way of the Rupture, and once again, Kingan's in trouble. There's so much CC, and he had nowhere to go. An easy second kill for Blank.
Great timing, and I'm loving the combo of Blank and Tal communicating around the vision being down, the flash being on cooldown by the 20 seconds or so. Really good stuff, really sharp stuff from Blank and Tal.
Oh wow, Bang has his back stopped as Marta's going to use that grey health to keep himself in the lane. They deny Bang his tier as the flash is going to be used to get out of the way of the Glacial Fissure that Effort was trying to lock down Marta with, but is that sacrifice enough just to try and get themselves to lane priority once again?
Have to have pretty big spheres to walk up to two people at 100 range and interrupt both of them.
Yeah.
But he did anyway against
Has Marta
Ignite.
proven that many times? I think he's proven that.
I mean, it's Ignite Braum, but they're going to use the timing of the recall to try to take down this turret. So at least there is a macro play here to back up Marta's apparent relentless aggression.
Well, this is exactly what this composition wants to do, as the passive from Swain working very well in tandem with Deft. He does have those traps down. Now, map is being broken open. SKT still with a gold lead given that first blood. This is exactly how the macro wants to play out for this KT squad.
Definitely you want to roam first as the Caitlyn. It's Tom Kench. It's not quite a Thresh being unleashed. Marta had that great interview last time out where he said, well, my team gets caught a lot, so I have to play Tom Kench.
Yep.
Good news is you can Abyssal Voyage, and then Berserker Greaves and BF Sword Caitlyn can do a lot of pushings. There are some nice things that are available to the Caitlyn now. We'll see where the lane assignments end up. We know where the Mountain Drake is going.
Yeah, that's going over to SKT. Blank going to be able to lock that one down easily. Vision of Empire does give Yukal the information that it's going down exactly when that happens, but he would have known that anyway, given the fact that Dragon does yell out. Ult just going to be fired at FLICKR in the mid lane, unable to pop the shield from his passive in time or anything like that, so we'll just take the damage. Too worried about it though, as Deft is going to start sieging the mid lane.
We'll see how much pressure KT can apply. Bang will soon be online with 2 items, waiting for about 19 to 21 minutes usually. I think that's when SKT will most want to fight, while Rise has more scaling options. They have some damage concerns in the late game, which means that mid-game decision-making from SKT will be very important. KT thinking they can just siege and get a lot of gold into their scaling comp before SKT even truly comes online. And if they take turrets this fast, maybe they can.
Yeah, this BF Sword's doing so much work here for Deft with the Berserker's Greaves as well. Rupture comes down and KT are well and truly sieging this one out. Should just be one more minion wave if they can keep FLICKR away from it. And this turret is not long for the world.
Waiting to see if SKT want to try anything.
Rift Scuttler. Nice work, Score. Gets his first.
Hey, it feels good about that. It's never nice having 0. Last time Score played, you remember the series against Afrika Freaks in game number 3 where he held Mowgli to 0 Rift Scuttlers in a game.
Yeah.
It was just a domination from Score in a way that only Tarzan has really had this season. So wants to get on the board here. Doesn't want to have too many down-tempo moments. He is up in camps against Blank, but of course the Scuttles have mostly gone the way of Blank.
Well, now we've got KT continuing this shove in the mid lane. They've got so much vision control bottom side of the map, but unfortunately for them, just not a lot of objectives down there that they really want to be fighting for. Blue buff there on the other side, but that's about it. It is all for this mid lane outer turret. Barrel comes in. There's all of the ultimates flying out from SKT as Tal comes in. Gets the 4-man knock-up with the Ornhorn. Mata has to eat the grey health, but should still be stunned. No! He's able to stay in on the backline as Score throws out the ult, but Yuka probably wanted to spend some more time in Demonic Ascension. Disengage is there, but a lot of buttons pressed from KT.
51st from SKT. Effort does flash through all of that. Caitlyn has been on the Rift a long time, so hasn't been able to shop. Just wanted to siege down the mid lane turret before anything happens. SKT able to delay that take. Def can teleport back to the mid lane. KT continue to try to play this tempo game. As much gold in the game as early as possible before SKT are in a scenario where Trinity Force, Muramana, Ezreal might be the strongest person on the Rift, and KT might have to give up multiple objectives.
And it looks like we may have been onto something, Papa. It's going to be the Zeal item coming in second here for Deft.
Come on,
He goes back.
we're no prophets expecting a Zeal item and a BF sword onto a Caitlyn. That's exactly the build.
Hey, no, but it's not Stormrazor.
It could still be a Stormrazor.
Hey, that's true. Damn.
Look, if we call ourselves prophets every time something happens, people won't be impressed when we pick cool stuff.
That's true. That is true.
SKT.
However, I still was a little bit disappointed because I would have liked to see the Stormrazor come in.
I'd love to see some action. SKT was certainly setting up for some. Little ward there to spot Blank, who was on a recall.
Yeah, they are going to clear that one out very quickly, though, as Rift Herald certainly an option here for SKT. They've got lots of vision around the area. This control ward has stayed in for Kingen for quite some time on the top side of the map. His Abyssal Mask is done, but Tiles is done as well, and he's even upgraded his brown bags. He's got some blue ones now.
See how much
fresher.
Cheating KT take here. They don't have deep vision, but they're trying to brute force this turret. Still around 5 or 6 orders from Caitlyn away from death.
Yep.
Moving up top side, maybe they're thinking, okay, we can just take the Rift Herald, but definitely not that easy right now for the side of KT. They've given up a lane's worth of farm as Tal is unchallenged in the bot lane on this Ornn. That was rude score, but
they'll miss a few of the creeps, but I think Yukal should be able to come down there to finish off a lot of the wave. And I feel like KT are just trying to keep minion wave tempo, with SKT needing to just eat up as much farm as they can while Deft clears them out one after the other. Right there, it was SKT able to stay in line with them, but it's everyone focusing on killing minions right now because the pace of the game in that regard is going so fast.
we're in this weird duality atlas where you might say, okay, KT feel really good about their scaling. Doesn't matter if they're just swapping farm with SKT. In the very near future, it matters because they're going to hit 2 items. Rift Herald has gone on a huge one onto the jungle. Because SKT are close to hitting a 2-item power spike, it does suck to be giving the Ezreal 2 items on the Ezreal very, very shortly. And they can put that gold to use. They can use the Ornn ultimate. They have strong initiation and soon a really important timing on the Ezreal. Meanwhile, Deft, if he shops at the same time, can't match Trinity Force and Muramana. And that's why we're in this kind of awkward spot where if they're just trading farm and not getting those turret autos off, it could be a big problem for the side of KT Rolster.
Yeah, and in fact, it even gets worse because it's not like we're looking for 3 items on the Caitlyn. I feel like we're looking for 4 before he's doing relevant damage to these members of SKT.
Observer has loved turret health this week. If you caught the broadcast yesterday, being very sassy was the Observer. We now know 638 health to DPS through, and Bang with a very unselfish back timing. He actually backed before he had Trinity Force. Could have stayed in lane, but just picked up a Stinger. And also the Ruby Crystal wants to ensure there is no timing where KT walk up, put down vision, and he's leaving his team a bit in the lurch by not having a decent item timing to fight.
Yeah, and I feel like as soon as, Deft takes down that mid-outer turret, things actually become really problematic as Score just smites away the Rift Scuttler pretty easily. Hillbilly Gragas, certainly his signature skin, like it.
There is the rapid fire cannon completed onto the Caitlyn.
Yeah.
Seeing a lot of rapid fire cannon because Kindred's in the meta. We'll pick it up pretty much every game.
You go on the Works out with Caitlyn as well for the same reason, because it scales with range so well.
Piggyback options are there when it comes to the jungler trying to look for a camp, but unfortunately trying to kill Tal when he has Abyssal Mask Merc Treads for a Gragas and the Swain sounds awful.
Yeah.
This won't happen.
That ain't going to be an easy time.
You run out of mana before you kill him.
KT still trying to put on the pressure here in this mid lane. Deft abusing that range quite well, utilizing his rapid fire cannon procs nicely.
He should be able to get autos that he couldn't get before because of that extra range. It's still going to take a while to actually take down this turret, as we can see.
Yep. But he only needs a couple more autos here as the minions are going to die. Backdoor bonus is going to be there for the turret, so KT can't go up to it. Deft really wants to get that proc. Does get one. Still does decent damage to the turret.
Caitlyn will be one of the few champions that still goes for the fleet footwork because finds it very easy to access champion auto attacks compared to other shorter range AD carries, and the minion healing was nerfed very, very significantly.
Yep.
But yes, the rapid fire cannon does allow Deft to get in those autos, but probably no longer. They've definitely diagnosed that the Caitlyn can be a bit more brazen, and still, after taking such an early first turret bot side, this is the inevitable kind of slowdown in the game. That's definitely going to be frustrating, KT.
Yeah, KT need to take that turret. They want to transition, grab one elsewhere. Feels like a matter of time for Carl to turn around and pick up his turret on the top side as well because it is extraordinarily low. They miss a cannon creep. That's going to trigger a lot of you back home, but finally KT should be able to grab this turret. One more auto from the minion, and it is going to go down as KT have been unlocked from sieging in mid. Unbreakable was down, so Deft presses R. That's an understandable thing.
Expect SKT to show a lot more resilience when the next back comes in and they have Trinity Force completed. It will be available for Bang on next back.
Ooh, that pillar could have been a little bit different there, and Score may have been in trouble. However, not going to boop him back into the members of SKT.
Small point, because KT saw SKT spending all their members' time, including their jungler, just patrolling over the mid lane turret. They know there can't be any vision here, and they have control wards that were there from a while ago. So they're 100% sure they can get the fallback Infernal. Good problem solving, just a pretty standard play there by KT. Now they have Infernal, they have two turrets. See what they do next, because there will be those big back timings for Bang that make things a little bit tricky.
Yeah, exactly. He wants to go home and grab that Trinity Force as quickly as possible, but you can see now the map has been opened up for KT. KT, there are early game monsters, certainly always have been here in the LCK. Once again, they've opened up the map, but they don't have a gold lead. It's not a big one, of course. Only 32 to 33,000. That's another BF sword for Deft. Looks like he's going second item Infinity Edge.
So, it's confirmation on the build. Seems like no Storm Razor at this point. See what the third item is. Will it just be another Zeal item? We'll overcap on the critical strike that time as Deft is frustrated by this red Brambleback.
I think Brambleback's probably more frustrated. He's the one getting shot in the back.
He lived a longer life than usual.
He did. He copped a lot more abuse than usual as well.
You know, you take what you can get.
Yeah, you win some, you lose some, I guess. I was just a bit too cup empty, I'm sorry, Papa. Yukal desperately trying to defend this very low health turret. Be able to do so as the Sith Lightning now has all of its points in it, so his wave clear has certainly been buffed up. Marta throws in a ward, spots the fact that there's a lot of members of SKT up here towards the top side.
But definitely you hear that click for SKT because Trinity Force Muramana, two items on the rise. Both tier items have transformed. This is where SKT stop just respecting the range advantage and start fighting. They have Realm Warp, they have Ornode. Even a pillar can be initiation. SKT have a lot of ways to force, and this is the time to do so.
Yeah, Mental's already set up for it. Great position from him as Kingan will have to use that teleport to get him into the fight. Never Move comes down as Blank takes a fair bit of damage, but FLICKR is going to be the focus. Ornhorn comes in. No one going to get knocked up at the moment as KT. They want the re-engage Score. Will he be able to find the boot back? He's holding onto the cask as it's going to be effort just eaten by Kingan. Didn't even need to start the fight, did Score, as the rest of his team were in the right position.
And FLICKR was on a flank, was turned on, and thus couldn't get any value out of his items in that fight. The Orin Holt was a goal through the mid. World Cup, miss you already. KT put down a control ward on the Baron. They probably won't start this objective, but they'd love to kill a troll.
Yep, they do spot the big dinosaur, though, hanging out to try and catch Blank out of position.
Score's checking his angles.
Yep, not going to be able to find the body slam, but gets the cask. It's a flash from Blank immediately. They do get the subjugate, which is something, and themselves a flash. SKT's jungler gets out, and that should save the Baron.
And remember, you start doing the checklist, you say, okay, enemy jungler, no flash, we have the feast coming up soon. At some point, the equations say, go in there and take the Baron. Won't be this second, but there's a long cooldown that has to be waited on for Blank. KT putting pressure This Caitlyn comp mostly doing what it's meant to be doing. 22 minutes in, they don't have 3 outer turrets, but they are, of course, knocking on the door. 393 health on this top lane turret.
Yep, also looking really good when it comes to the vision. They've transitioned all of it topside now, focusing on trying to get priority around the Baron and also trying to get that last remaining outer turret. Speaking of which, should be top lane outer falling in favor of FLICKR. Gets that wave to move forward as KT had gone back, so that's going to be first turret going over to SKT. And they will continue to have that sliver of a gold lead. This telecom war already shaping up to be such a close one. Interesting game as well, given the picks, given Deft back on his signature Caitlyn in a time where Caitlyn would definitely not be expected.
Also want you to remember at home, we have only 3 champions in this game who do not have access to teleport. They are Effort and both junglers. Marta has the Unsealed Spellbook and can change over to the teleport.
Also has Abyssal Voyage as well, so should be able to deliver score to some of these fights potentially.
The outnumbering can be near instant. It's something to always remember in this meta where AD carries have moved away from traditional summoners in the mid lane.
Yeah, there's a lot of teleports coming in. Realm Warp's going to get fake at the fight as well as Yukal just right in amongst it, but he's got the Demonic Ascension. Can they actually burst him? No, they can't, because Marta's got the Devour. Demon Flare going to be available soon as there's the cask for the disengage purely, and Kingen might once again be the one to fall down. Oh God! The Devour once again, and Marta is the hero that KT needs every damn time.
But you see that the setups need to be better from KT. You cannot be any sort of rusty on these engages because there's a lot of damage on SKT. They've hit their spikes like we mentioned. They want this turret.
Yeah, they're doing so much damage on burst, even from a safe distance as well. Thankfully for KT, they do have the wave clear, given the fact that there's a Rupture, there's a Cask, and there's, of course, the autos coming in from the Caitlyn. But, man, it's starting to feel scary very quickly for KT Rolster.
Turns out when the Rise is doing damage, things are really different because the Ezreal will always be doing damage. Watching the replay here, teleport could have been cancelled, but Yukal is Swain, so he feels the ability to go into stasis. Still needs a helping hand, needs Marta. Marta has a big impact in this fight twice. Deft gets free autos, but he has double BF sword and a rapid fire cannon. So Tal laughs at him and takes no damage. That is, of course, the reality of mid-game crit itemization. Marta able to disengage. Kingen does get away. Infinity Edge will be there on this back, but still going to be a bit of time before Deft can do real damage to Tal.
Yeah, I wonder what that means for the next item coming in for Deft as well. It's a longsword sitting in his back pocket. Could be going for something like a Last Whisper as item number 3. Sort of a very old AD carry build. Certainly works out for Caitlyn, who wants to be able to augment those auto attacks as much as possible, and will want to be cutting through Tal on that front line. Front to back is exactly how Caitlyn wants to be playing these fights out. SKT moving down towards the next Infernal Drake that has spawned. They really want to be able to lock this one down. Don't want KT to be able to get a double stack, and KT, they want to take this one away if they can. Oh, the pillar is so good to deny the steal from Score, and SKT take it, and they move away. Realm Warp, in fact, is going to get SKT back towards the mid lane. All 5 members ready to defend.
Really nice set piece play. You forget some of these great Realm Warp players because see much less Rise in this current meta. KT's comp, one of the advantages of going Caitlyn Tahm Kench is that you can kind of ignore wards, go down a lane, ARAM, and feel pretty good about it because Caitlyn has the immense range. And the Tahm Kench is there to disengage. You can get a little bit less respectful with your vision because you have such safety in the duo. When it comes to the plays around the Baron, still going to be nuanced, still going to be difficult. KT are not in a position to start this objective still. Lank's Flash, which was something they could potentially work around, will be up very shortly.
This is exactly what KT want to be doing, though. They've got a Warmogs very early onto Kingen, so he can tank that Baron for as long as possible. If they can get themselves into a position where they have priority around the pit, there's an opportunity.
And you know how I said they had access to a lot of teleports? They can also have just the most smites and a feast. So we can go L cheese, super hard cheese on this side. I don't even know what type of cheese that is. Some rare.
Parmesan? I think Parmesan can get pretty hard.
Rarer
you know?
than that. This is some real aged Gouda.
Like some aged Gouda. Okay, yeah. I was just talking about hard cheese. KT, though, we'll see whether they can actually find it. I think it's still in the deli at this point in time.
You'd hope it didn't have to come down to quite that gimmicky a play. KT trying to play it just very standard. They've got the outer turrets down. Again, their scaling should feel really good. It's 2-threat SKT. If one of those threats is disengaged, you're so safe on Caitlyn that you should be finding relevant orders eventually. You has the Last Whisper in the inventory, working on Lord Dominic's Regard. Your first thought is it probably will have to be that 4th item, Atlas, before it really does take off, but Deft is hitting his item timings pretty cleanly.
I think Lord Dominic's as a 3rd item will put Deft in quite a power spike. Not necessarily the biggest, not 3-item 80 carry of old, where Double Zeal Infinity Edge was just the most crit damage possible. It's not that situation now. However, Tal will go down extraordinarily quickly to the Caitlyn damage.
But I think at this point, Ezreal will shred much faster than the Caitlyn will. And that's the trade-off you always make. It's double tier, so definitely some eye to the future here for Bang to have those really powerful True Shot barrages. And just in general, power that ability power does bring the Ezreal. So again, setups need to be careful.
Speaking of which, Score jumps in. Bang takes so much damage from these auto attacks, but thankfully for SKT fans, he's not going to fall. Blank potentially out of position, has to flash the body slam as KT. They really wanted that kill, but they won't get it.
Score's always been an opportunist on those flash plays. They get a lot, but they don't get exactly what they need. They cannot stop Baron with any sort of safety with that play. Teleport just to come back in for the Ezreal.
Yep, slow does come down onto Deft, but thankfully Mata is there. Teleport going to come down as a couple of members of SKT do warp themselves in, and that's going to mean that those teleports are cancelled. Kingen might be caught out here as Bang can get over this wall. Doesn't have a lot of slow options. Trinity Force Ezreal, not the same utility available to him.
Gonna be honest, I thought a minion wave was coming in with the Realm Warp. They didn't have one, so didn't achieve too much. A bit of a short hop there, and we know the cooldown is pretty insanely long, whether you have CDR or no on the rise.
Doesn't stop his ability to fight though, so FLICKR still will be something that they have to respect, especially with the 3 items that he's completed. I love that SKT turned up the heat almost as soon as they hit these item timings. They've kept up on all of this vision around the Baron as well.
Very, very even game between KT and SKT. We'd have it no other way.
Oh, absolutely.
It was always a reality, regardless of it being 5 versus 7 after Han was lost. Would have been 6 versus 7, but Hanwha did lose very convincingly to Griffin in game number 1 of the day.
Even the height of SKT's power, it has been a phenomenal series. Oh god, FLICKR in a lot of trouble. Ornhorn will come down as FLICKR doing the do-si-do really nicely. Vision of Empire comes in. He dodges out of the never move. He's buying so much time as KT start the yakety sax music. Finally, he will get locked down and KT get the mid laner, but SKT, that was a lot of time bought for them. Doesn't look like they're going to be able to get too much for it,
They weren't decisive enough. Their first thought was to run after FLICKR. By the time they did that, they were out of position to get a really fast turret and then more. They will get the turret anyway, but SKT needs to be a bit more decisive. There was no getting FLICKR out of that predicament.
Yeah, what is there an opportunity for the re-engage here? No, and the answer from KT was actually to send Deft towards the top side of the map. He will be able to go 1-for-1 on these turrets, and it's exactly what this KT comp wants to do. The more turrets they have, the better they're going to look as a composition. And Deft is getting very, very close to picking up that Lord Dominic's Regard.
Top lane's getting really, really long, which is usually a good sign when it comes to Baron control, which we've already mentioned a couple of times. Be KT's next hope.
And that's the Lord Doms. So Deft, he's on that 3-item potential spike. We're still not sure what it's actually going to mean as far as the Caitlyn's power level, but if there's ever been parity in 2 teams, certainly is illustrated by this game. Only 1,000 gold in a 50,000 gold game means basically nothing, and he's got a Brawler's Glove in his back pocket as well. Thankfully, costs 400 gold on this patch.
Exactly, taking advantage of Doran's sick deal that he has going on just this week. Wasn't there last week.
Yeah, I know, right?
Hot offer. Definitely get in there. Has the Brawler's Glove. I believe he's sitting on quite a lot of gold, but didn't have enough to pick up his second Zeal.
Also gets him very close to 100% crit. With the new Infinity Edge being there, so getting double dealings, like you say. Just a bargain hunter. Is Deft basically thrift shopper. Tal moving on over. His positioning for the Ornhorns has been fantastic as SKT, maybe it's their turn for the Age Gouda. There's so much damage down onto this Baron. KT's not going to make it, and SKT sneak the Baron.
Beautifully done with the Realm Warp there. Very creative use of it. Watching this side, just interrupts here. That's a free Baron.
That's a disengage, and Bang even hops over the wall just for fun to do some extra damage, and KT's plan just fell in a gigantic hole.
Vintage SK Telecom playing around the timing on the Infernal Drake. definitely don't feel good about your Infernal for Baron trade, and may not even be a freebie, as SKT, some of them are backed and the rest of them are coming for a fight.
Yeah, the rest of KT are going to use all of the damage that they have available to them to take down this dragon. They do so very quickly. But now KT, they're angry. They want to fight. We'll see whether they can find one here as Yukal has position at the front. Gets the never move onto Bang, but Tal, he's going to jump his way forward. Mata saves his mid laner, but look at the damage onto the Tahm Kench. He's not going to be saving anyone in the front line if another fight is going to start, and Bang needs to be respected on this Ezreal.
Bang doing so much damage already. Great play by SKT. They forced them to stick around. The Infernal may have gone down, but they need to now wait 2.5 minutes before they have any chance of taking a true 5v5.
Well, we'll see how aggressive Deft can be on this Caitlyn, trying to stave off SKT as they siege forward. Only 4 members here as FLICKR is split pushing on the bottom side, wants to get the free outer turret that should be available. And SKT are going to be able to take this one down, but can KT challenge? It is 4v4 at the moment, but you can see waiting in the wings. Caitlyn is going to move in as, oh, there's the boot back from Score. As Blank's going to take a lot of damage, but a 5-man knockup comes in from the Ornhorn, and Faker turns up. Kingan does have the Gargoyle Stone Plate, will need to be devoured though, as there's another Realm Warp, and SKT are team fighting like the SKT of old. Effort is going to pick up the kill onto the Dinosaur, and it's all going wrong. The Caitlyn picks up one, but that's it, and SKT roll over KT.
SKT's collapsed, they might just win the game here, Atlas. They got the Baron buff still, they're pushing through. I think KT might be done.
Yep, there's 6 minions here, and they will be able to tank this one up. Blank is super strong, and look at the damage to these structures. SKT, you can never count them out in a telecom war. They dropped a game versus MVP, but so far this series, they haven't dropped one against KT Rolster.
2 smart decisions, and the game is over. Crowd is in raptures. SK Telecom take first blood in the telecom war.
Just amazing, amazing play. Both sides trading back and forth, but in the end, that Baron play was 600 IQ. Amazing stuff from SKT, and can we dare to hope, can we dare to dream that this is SKT making their comeback run?
It is something that will be on a lot of people's minds, and this was all about what's old is new again. Caitlyn's back, that was a surprise. We understood the laning phase would be good against the Ezreal, but Ryze has been around, but he hasn't really been back until now. Realm Warp was used so well to get into that Baron pit. They take it down, and then KT wait one mistake against Baron, the game ends.
Yeah, just nothing they could do. The items were too good from SKT at that point in time as well. They were able to play around exactly the time that they needed to sneak that Baron, timed it with the Dragon as well, understanding KT's positioning, read them like a book, and just so incredibly smart. KT had played that game out about as well as that comp probably could have gone. To be honest, we weren't expecting the Caitlyn. It came in, we knew what it wanted to do, didn't necessarily get off the ground because they were halted at the mid lane for so incredibly long. Otherwise, I felt like it was working. Then that Baron play happened and the dominoes collapsed.
But if you just plug and play, okay, it was working till it wasn't and they lost, and you say maybe they weren't inventive enough around what they had. They got the first turret, like you mentioned, delayed around the second, and then one super play when it comes to the rotations was enough to close the door on KT Rolster in game number 1. That probably means that the Caitlyn strategy shelved. We'll probably see Smeb in game number 2 as well, as Kingan was dunked on a little bit in the early game. Didn't really get to learn too much about this top lane prodigy, Ezreal and Ryze, enough because the game never went late enough for the extra damage on KT's comp to really matter in a 5v5 sense.
Yeah, and speaking of extra damage, good lord, Tal out-damaged Kingan by a country mile. FLICKR unfortunately unable to find the champion damage, but he was destroying minion waves one after the other, and it was just the Caitlyn for KT that really did anything as far as taking down anyone in these fights, and even then, it wasn't as much as Bang.
Always a bit of magic in the air for the telecom war. SK Telecom rolling back the clock. Really fun game 1.
Yeah, incredible game 1. We'll see whether they can continue it in game number 2. The counter picks will belong to KT as they move over to the red side, but it could also just be that 2-0 for SKT. We'll see what happens after this.